Hello, welcome to Chess Comedy Books 20, in which we take a light-hearted look at the oh-so-serious world of chess. Chess publications, mostly. A small thank you to Mr. Stephen Dowd, whom I don't know, but who has contacted me and agreed with me about the books I showed about sacrifices. Well, Stephen, I'm glad that you like them, and we will have some more coming up in due course, I'm sure. But for the moment, I want to pay tribute to this book, which looks so dull, but it isn't. The point being, and this is a point I've made before, we need to give these things a chance. This is published by Pittman, probably about 70 years ago. Isaac Pittman, Sir Isaac Pittman. 300 ways to win in the openings, and who wouldn't like that? Well, that's interesting. It's by Irving Chernev. I thought it was by Fred Reinfeld. Just shows you I know nothing at all. I don't know why I bother coming on for. Deals with pawn to king 4, pawn to king 4, the Nimzo Indian, Queen's Indian, King's Indian, Budapest defence. Quite handy, the Budapest defence. And the Queen's pawn, and then a little bit about the English. Now, this may be old as the hills, but little things can be useful. It shows you a few little traps and finesses. Starting off with the Lopez. Here we are. Position in the centre counter. Well worth knowing. You can play, see that? If you can't, I'll put it even closer. You can play knight e5 and he snaffles the queen. And whoops-a-daisy, you get mated on f7. Bishop takes f7, and you can't take back because it's guarded by the bishop. It's guarded by the knight on e5. So if you take the queen on d1, you're only yourself to blame. It's got loads and loads of little things. I mean, you might say, well, surely some of these are obvious as my face, but some of them aren't. And if you don't want to play through it, as I've so often said, well, don't pass on to the next one. You're not at school. You're just enjoying yourself. And I think these books are hugely enjoyable. Here is a book by I was going to say the same guy, but here is a book by Fred Reinfeld. This is a later edition. He deals with how to play the white pieces. We all need to know that. 1973. I dare say this was trotted out after the Vicious Masky match. Various systems dealt with in a similar way as this. In fact, I got muddled up, but it's not the same book. Unlike Chess for Children and the Chess Apprentice, more Chess for Children and the Chess Apprentice, which are the same books. I'm never going to live that down, am I? Let's see how to control the center. And there's a note on notation. So if you're not very good on notation, or you just need a little bit of a brush up, there you are. How to control the center, exploit superior development, exploit superior mobility, premature opening up of the position, i.e. move 6 or 7 or something, how to exploit black's premature counterattack, and so on and so forth. I really like these little books. Now, from a good book to a thumping good book. This is great. And I'm going to blow my nose. Not in retaliation, but just because it's the winter and I've got a cold. This was originally published as the complete book of chess stratagems I'm not sure I even know what stratagem is. Sounds like it's Latin, but I don't think it is, actually. This contains any amount. I mean, it's got 340 pages. Trapped men, vulnerable for back rank, X-ray attacks, queen sacrifices, removing the blockader, removing the guard, pawn promotion. It just goes on and on and on. Fantastic. Fantastic. Look. You can just while away your whole life looking at books like this. See that? He plays e6, sacrificing a pawn to gain control of e5 and get at the black king before it has a chance to so much as blow its nose, let alone get castled. It says Fred Reinfeld was author of more than 50 chess books. He certainly was. And there's 488 games in this book. Look at that. Look at that. You just think it's a little book. Fantastic. Now, here's something you didn't expect to see. Look at this. Isn't that Staunton and Saint Amand? And if it is, what's this joker doing here? This gentleman is Gers. Learned more from playing these games than I did from playing the games in Journal of a Chess Master. He has written other things. He specializes in the Leningrad Dutch. In other words, you play f5 for the Dutch and you play a kingside fianchetto. And with black against one e4, he likes to play the modern defense, and his big hero is Mr. Duncan Suttles. In other words, the Canadian Grandmaster. Duncan is still alive, but he doesn't play anymore. Well, this bloke does play, and his games are postal. From an era when people weren't using computers ad nauseum. By my faith, time and space fitting this well a good tale to tell. Sir Walter Scott. And he quotes a game in the Alekhine defense. I'm just hesitating here. He plays the Cochrane variation of the Petrovs. So after d6, instead of playing it back to f3, as you might, or d3 if you're Magnus Carlsen, which you're probably not, he takes on f7. Bronstein recommends this. I expect Bronstein recommends it as much to avoid tedium as because he considers it a winning system, which it isn't. But it does give black a shock. I've never faced it, and I played lots of Petrovs in my time. I'm just going to have a little coffee. I played lots of Petrovs in my time. Now, I'm 100% certain you've never seen this book before. Let me guide you through. It's called The Shuffle Duck. That is not. I know what you're thinking. The Shuffle Duck. Is that a spoonerism? A new system for the brave-hearted based on 1h4. In other words, a little stab up the side of the board. And there is the Shuffle Duck, putting his thumb up. Seems to have a little hat on. And it's a book by Ken Norbury. And he's an accredited ECF coach. Well, Mr. Ken, you sent me this book for review so long ago. It's also been reviewed in the Times on Saturday by Raymond Keane. You've obviously put it together on your word processor. Well, you're no worse than me, because I put a fair few bits and bobs on my word processor in my time. And he looks at ways of incorporating h4, for example, in the Trompovsky, I expect you know it, where bishop g5, knight e4, And then instead of moving the bishop, which is on g5, you flick in h4. So he talks about various flank attacks in that way. This chapter covers the area that will be most interesting to most attack-minded readers. I see. It's all simulating stuff. He won't have to mind, or maybe he will, when I say maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have to be taken that seriously. There's an advert here for his local pub, which is the Abbey pub in Sheffield. Well, I went for a week's holiday in Sheffield, and I can't say I'm rushing to go back, but I'm told, in no uncertain terms, I should have given it more of a chance, that it's actually quite nice there. Ideas also shared, including Steve Gibbs, Paul Blackman, Steve Mann, Mark Allison, Robert Newton, I played Robert Newton, and a very dear friend of mine, sadly no longer with us, Bill Pettigrew. Says each of your shuffle duck games will be unique. If you look through British chess news, as I hope you do, my colleague John, there's a position from Chester, 1979. The British Championships were held there. And a young lady, Helen Granite, now Mrs. Frostick, played 1h4 against Anne Sunnox, as much to shock her as to beat her. And Anne simply said, she's copying the boys, which of course she was. And I think she probably rolled her up in no uncertain terms. Yes. I can't help thinking these diagrams are a bit blurry, but sometimes h4 is not the most helpful thing. It provides a gash in your king side before you've decided where the rest of them are going to go. Ken Norbury, full marks for your initiative and for originality of thought, but with the greatest of disrespect, that isn't probably the best book ever written, but you know that. And it is good fun. It is good fun. Just a little thank you, by the way, to Marcus Connolly for your support as I start up this series of comedy chess books. I asked last time, had Korchnoi beaten Fischer more than once? I haven't actually looked that up yet, but I don't think he did. Anyway, Gary Lane contacts me, an international master from Australia, to tell me that he doesn't write any more books. I couldn't believe it, having written so many, 25 or something, I don't know, up to 1913, that he hadn't written a single one in the last 8 years. But Gary tells me he hasn't, and he doesn't go frequently to painting anymore because his mum has died. Well, sending kind wishes to him and his family. Obviously, I didn't know Mrs. Lane, but who I do know is this, and this was the one of Gary's, which I didn't review. I said it was in my bedroom, and it is. In fact, I've got a second copy of this. If anybody wants one, get in contact and I'll sort of have a little price for you. As you can see, the text is single column and the notation is somewhat heavy-handed. It's okay. You might prefer that, but it's not standard. It's not standard. He deals with various themes, and he builds them into, instead of units, days. So give yourself a few minutes to regain your composure after a dramatic incident. Yes, Wade deals with this. He said that he was playing Samish, I think it was, and Samish was about to lose on time. Instead of sitting there banging moves out, he went to the drinks counter, came back with a cup of coffee. Which reminds me, I'm not Bob Wade going to the drinks counter. This book was published by Batsford, and it's called Sharpen Your Chess Tactics in 7 Days. And it was written in 2009. It was one of the last written by G.W. Lane. There's a little photograph here. It's a cartoon. Someone sending smoke signals to the Indian, possibly, about what you should do or not do. It looks like he's saying, don't move your bishop. There's a bishop coming up and a cross against it. One more book, and then we'll stop for the moment. I don't even know what this is. It is about the close Sicilian. About the close Sicilian. In other words, you don't play an early d4 as white. You build up more slowly on the flank. Not specifically on the flank. You can play d4, but traditionally you play, say, d3. And this was given to me from the late Ken Wilde, who was from Basingstoke, not Ken Wilde with an H, but Ken Wilde with a Y. Ken was a very nice chap, and he worked at the AWRE, as it then was, the Atomic Weapons Establishment, and I knew him quite well. And when he died, his books were pushed in my direction, which I much appreciated, and this is an example of that. That's what I was going to come on to say. It's in English descriptive notation, and it centres on various games which have been played. It was a great favourite, for example, of Smyslov. Not of Bobby Fischer or the current guys, I don't think, but they would have to know how to deal with it. It's quite a lot of deep for a book that's just typed. It isn't over enamoured with diagrams. I quite like it. I would think probably quite a lot of midnight oil, as the saying goes, went into this. Again, they mention Smyslov and Botvinnik. So there we are. I can't remember the last time I read a chess book with so few diagrams. There's one. It's a bit small, but you can sort it out, can't you? Look at that. Yeah. You can see the pawns coming up, almost as if it's a tent. Well, tent or not. Thank you very much. This has been Chess Comedy Books 20. I'm James Pratt. Goodbye.